Okay, welcome everybody to another edition of Complete Sports Media Podcast. I'm your host, Darren Campbell. Thanks so much for taking the time and joining us today. Well, it's opening day of Major League Baseball, and I decided to get a baseball guy, a guy that I've known for a real long time, something around 25 years, a guy that's been in the media business for his whole career, lifetime, and a guy that is a really big baseball fan, big expert on the sport. Can't believe how excited I am to have Dale Cory joining me. Yeah, good morning, Dale. Thanks a lot for taking the time and joining me.
Well, good morning, Darren. I want to say congratulations. I've watched some of the previous episodes. I was just watching Jim Houston this morning. So thanks a lot for having me on right after somebody that I believe is the best in the business right now at calling hockey games. So thanks for having me on right after Jim Houston. But obviously you're sticking with the Okanagan. He's in the Okanagan. I'm in Penticton. So we know the place to be right now is the Okanagan.
It's very true. Yeah. Penticton's beautiful this time of year. And Jim was up there too, just before he heads to Toronto for this bubble. So, when I was thinking of all the ways of describing you, I was thinking, oh my God, where am I going to start? You've done so much in your career. I'm going to just read off some of the things that I see here listed off for you. Reporter, sales guy, marketing guy, media specialist, corporate sales, color commentator. You do commentating for the V's for the racetrack. Constantly in the media, doing whatever you can. It's an amazing resume that you have. You're always keeping busy. You must love it in Penticton to enable you to do all that.
Yeah, you know what? I moved here about 2.5 years ago. Took a radio job with Bell Media at that point, and of course since then, like many other medias. And I saw Global yesterday. They eliminated the position about 6-8 months ago. So I moved on. I now work with Now Media Group out of Kelowna. So I populate PentictonNow.com for the most part. But yes, I like to stay busy, and you try to leave this business sometimes and get into something else, but something just draws you back. You just love it so much. But I do announcing up at Penticton Speedway. I do color commentary on the radio and TV broadcasts for Hockey TV for the Penticton Bees. It goes on from there. It's a great community to be in. I spent a lot of years in Chilliwack, and that's where we probably first met there. You were in Vancouver and I was out in Chilliwack and had my own monthly sports paper going at that point. But it's a busy community here. There's just so much happening. It's tourist season now. The beaches are as packed as they can be given COVID-19. Just yesterday, about 2 weeks ago, they passed a bylaw here, only the third BC municipality to allow drinking in public parks. So I think North Vancouver and Port Coquitlam are the only other two. So Penticton Council passed that a couple of weeks ago, and then passed another bylaw yesterday to include Skaha Lake Park. So we've got drinking on the beaches here. Come on and visit us in Penticton. It's a beautiful place, and like I say, very, very busy place, very active. It's a community unto its own, and about 40,000 people, 40 minutes out of Kelowna. 40 minutes to a Soyuz. I believe I live in the best place on earth.
Yeah, you sure do. Yeah, it was nice. I got an opportunity to visit you there last summer and had a really great time. And you showed me all the best places to go and people to see. And yeah, we just had a blast. And I love that you've always been a small town guy. You originally were from Saskatchewan, and that's where you got into the media business. Tell listeners and viewers a little bit about your initial jobs into the broadcasting world.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in the Yorkton area. So when I finished at Mount Royal College in Calgary, I went back to Yorkton and worked in radio there for a little bit, and then ended up moving on to Swift Current and then Regina. And Regina was really, I think, the great opportunity. Swift Current, I was doing some Broncos play-by-play there, and I actually left there about 2 months before the accident with the bus and the Broncos bus crash. So I had moved on to Regina just a couple of months before that, and remember the day vividly, working at CKRM in Regina and getting a phone call saying, and the Broncos were supposed to be in Regina that night. They were on their way to Regina when the accident happened, and just vividly remember that. But loved my time in Regina. I was at CKRM, and we were Saskatchewan sports station at that point, had Rough Rider broadcasts, had Regina Pats broadcasts, Regina Rams broadcasts, and there's still junior football then, and a powerhouse in junior football. So I was patrolling sidelines for the Rough Rider games. I had my wireless mic and my headphones on. I was on the visiting sidelines. So I would just walk back and forth. I thought I had the best job on the planet at that point. Getting to be up close and follow that football wherever it was, and the reactions of the players, you just don't get to see that in the stands as much. And so I was able to do that and do Pats play-by-play and Rams play-by-play. And we had a talk show every night, open line talk show, something pretty much unheard of these days on conventional radio anyway. So the business has changed so much since then. Ended up eventually moving out to the coast and worked a few months at the old UTV with Taylor and Randorf, Carson, and all those guys, Shorthouse. So I had some fun there, and then ended up taking a radio job in Chilliwack and loved it out there, and ended up spending about 20 years there. And ended up going to Alberta for a few years, regained my senses, came back to BC, and have spent the last 2.5 years out here in Penticton.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, well, I was really happy that you moved out to the coast, and we got an opportunity to meet each other when you started covering the Canucks and eventually the Grizzlies, and it was really great sitting next to you in the press box, and you were working for a radio network at the time, and so was I. And yeah, we were able to forge a friendship, and yeah, it's nice that it's been 25 years. I can't believe it. Tell me about those days being able to cover the Canucks and the Grizzlies and the NHL and NBA.
Well, I was at the radio station in Chilliwack for I guess about 2.5 years, and they had cutbacks again, and Rogers ended up, it was a small kind of local station with stations in Chilliwack and Abbotsford and Hope at that point, and locally owned by Bill Coombs. And eventually they were bought out by Rogers, and that changed things. Staff were laid off, so I moved on from there. But I think the time that we met and I started going into Vancouver, the Canucks were big. The Grizzlies had just come in, and the fan radio station out of Toronto, All Sports Radio, they were the first ones, and ended up kind of contracting out to them to cover Canucks and Grizzlies. I think I was getting $35 a game to go to the games. Probably cost me 10 or 15 in gas. I tried to find free parking so I could at least see a few dollars out of it. I might go on 4 or 5 times and do a quick minute. What they did is they had a host in Toronto, and they had stringers everywhere. So they'd go to Chicago because there was a Hawks game. They'd go to Miami because there was a Heat game. Then they'd come to Vancouver for a Grizzlies game, and I could do a quick update. One of the highlights, I just vividly remember that first season when the Grizzlies were beating Chicago, and Michael Jordan came through with, I think, 19 in the fourth quarter to single-handedly beat the Grizzlies that night. It was such an exciting game, and to be up close and personal. And we sat for the Grizzlies. There was 3 rows of media seating along the side. Sometimes you'd get pushed back to one of the ends, but basketball just was so cool for me. I always loved the sport. I'm a hockey fan. But to see basketball come in at the NBA level, it was such an entertainment. It was like a 2-hour entertainment package. Hockey, you're there for the love of hockey. Basketball had everything else, the dancers, the music, and everything else. But, to be 6-8 feet away from Michael Jordan standing in front of the bench there, or Scottie Pippen in that case. We just saw the feature on Big Country, Brent Reeves, a couple of weeks ago. And it was fun to reminisce about those times. They were great times. And I think, unfortunately, Steve Nash became a Grizzly and didn't go somewhere else at the beginning of his career. Maybe the Grizzlies are still there. They had great fan support. I think it was the corporate part that that just wasn't working out quite as well. Just didn't have that base, but the fan base was certainly there. Basketball is big in the Lower Mainland, obviously, but so it was sad to see them go. But it was a fun time. I mean, there was times where the Grizzlies play one night, Canucks the next night, Grizzlies the next night. You'd be coming into Vancouver 4 or 5 times in a week, and if you were a season ticket holder for both, I mean, you were going to a lot of games at that point at the old GM place. So it was a fun time, but obviously things change. Sports radio has changed drastically as well. I mean, they got so big into it at that point, but radio has changed. It's not near as local as it used to be, and I know in Penticton here with the station, they've got maybe 2 or 3 announcers at an AM and an FM station. It all comes out of Kelowna or comes out of Toronto or somewhere else. So it's unfortunate that way. I don't think it's the right way to go. I can understand the finances involved in it, but you need that local content, whether it's a Vancouver station that people want to hear Vancouver news and sports, or here in Penticton.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's the world is changing. The broadcasting landscape is changing, and it's one of the reasons why I'm sitting here doing this. It's becoming a world where we're at home. A lot of people have been doing this over this pandemic time. I saw so many Zoom calls in the past 4 or 5 months. Whoever has stock in this company is pretty happy because suddenly it became the thing to do. But it's nice to connect, guys like yourself. I've been able to connect with so many of my media friends and colleagues over the time that I was in the business. And so this is a new media. This is a new way to get sports out to people. And it's been a lot of fun for me. I'm really glad that, we can reminisce and talk about sports. You mentioned the Chicago Bulls a bit there. That Last Dance was one of the most unprecedented documentaries in sports I've ever seen. I just couldn't believe the access the guys got. I don't think that we'll ever see that type of access given to reporters ever again. Just that 10-part series was just so compelling. I was there for a lot of the moments. I kept trying to see myself in the background, holding the microphone. There was just so many times where I thought, hey, I was actually at that arena. I was there at this moment, and it must have been the same for you. A lot of really good memories coming back.
Yeah. You know what? And that's one series I haven't had the chance to see yet, and I do need to get through it. I know it's one of those must-see type situations. They just had such great teams for a number of years and such a powerhouse. And, it's always interesting building the dynamics of something like that and keeping it. I know I watched a 30 on 30 for Doc and Daryl the other day, obviously. Huge
guy.
Huge Mets fan. Opening day today, but Doug Gooden and Daryl Strawberry, when they came up in the early 80s, and of course they had the championship team in 86, but keeping a good team together, and everybody goes through that, and Chicago was able to do it for so many years. I mean, Daryl Strawberry had his great rookie of the year, and Doc Gooden the next year, rookie of the year, and Cy Young winner. And then things started to fall apart, and so many things came into play, from marital issues to substance abuse issues and everything that went into it. Doc Gooden, I didn't even remember this. Doc Gooden didn't make the parade the next day after they won the World Series. His call was to the wrong person. He spent the night and didn't even make the parade. So that's how much it got a hold of his life. And obviously they both kind of resurrected things that way. And Doc went on to pitch a no-hitter for the Yankees, which of course was a little tough to see, but happy for him, obviously. That's the main thing. But yeah, in the case of the Bulls, I mean, they just had such strong teams and were able to sustain it for so many years. It tells you that from the front office down, there's strong people there and strong leadership that believes in the team and does what it takes to keep those guys happy. Make sure there's no distractions, that they're there for basketball. They're there for each other. They're a team. And in life, I think we learn as much as anything. If it's the business we work in or the slow pitch team we play on, it's about the team. It's not about yourself. It's the team. And they really captured that for a lot of years in Chicago.
Yeah, they sure did. Yeah. What an amazing organization. And, from top all the way down, obviously it was, the players for the most part, but they just really built an amazing foundation and went up from there, those 6 championships in 8 years. And It was, I'm shocked that you haven't seen it. Make it a must see,
I will.
Yeah, just definitely put it on the top of your priority list because it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen sports wise. Really, really fantastic. Yeah. So, you talked about the Mets. I want to get into them. There was a lot of talk last night with the opening night happening, a couple of games. Garrett Cole was pitching for the Yankees, a new acquisition from Houston, and he had about 5 strikeouts in a row. And they said, "Oh, we shouldn't talk about it yet, but Tom Seaver holds the record for 10 consecutive strikeouts." So I was like, "Oh, nice! There's a nice Mets reference there, and a guy that you'd resonate with." And then all of a sudden, they started talking a little bit about the game today, and the Mets are facing the Braves, a great National League East rival. It's going to be an amazing pitching matchup. Jacob deGrom against Mike Soroka. I guess you're excited. It's happening in a couple hours here. Opening day, you can't beat it in baseball.
Yeah, a little later than planned, but it's still good. We're still getting to the season when we're about 3 hours away from first pitch right now at Citi Field. So it was fun watching the games yesterday. It's unfortunate the Yankees Nationals game ended up having a huge rainstorm go through there, not able to finish it. But Giancarlo Stanton, that home run he hit, the first one was a bomb. My goodness, when you watch these guys, and when they swing through and hit the ball and they just stand there and watch, they know obviously it's over the fence. And you watch a game on TV, it's so much different. I've been to Safeco a few times. My son and I went down to Safeco a couple of years ago when the Mets came through, because they just don't come to the American Lake cities very often, and Seattle. So we went down for a Saturday game. The Mets army was there. There was probably about 3,000 or 4,000 Mets fans, all in orange shirts at the game. So we both had our Mets jerseys on and fit right in. It was fun to see. But a stadium is much smaller when you're there in person than when you see it on TV. And yeah, when he hit through that yesterday, he knew it was gone. And then watched a good chunk of the Dodgers Giants game. And I'll remember many years ago, went to Phoenix for a holiday in April, start of the season, and wanted to go to Los Angeles for a couple of days. And so got tickets to couldn't get the season opener. Lots of seats yesterday, but couldn't get the season opener, but got the second game of the season. The Giants and Dodgers always start the year. So went to game 2 of the season at Dodger Stadium, which is just an amazing place to go. If you've never been to Dodger Stadium, Chavez Ravine, it's just one of the most beautiful places to be in. But they've got such a great rivalry as well. So good to see what the players did before the game, getting down on a knee. Some of them stayed down on one knee for the national anthem, which I'm sure Donald Trump cringed at a little bit yesterday, but so be it, Donald. He's going to have to pick things up a bit and understand that there are issues out there and need to get addressed immediately. So, but as far as baseball, it's good to see that the season's going. I'm excited about this. Jim Houston referred to it yesterday, talking from a hockey standpoint, that it's a whole new thing for everybody. It's that horse race, a 60-game season in baseball. There's the push to win right away. Some teams will start slow in April and May and get some steam as the season progresses and get better and better. And last year, the Mets had an 8-game winning streak and then lost one, and then a 7-game winning streak, and won 15 of 16 to get into the race and make it really close. And they were the last team not to make it in with the best record. So this year was 60 games. The starting pitchers won't get as many outings. They should be fresh. I'm excited about it because I just think it places so much more importance on every single game. And when you play 162 in baseball, you can see how players can, their minds can wander a little bit. It's a lot of baseball to play, but when it's 60 games, there's a push to the finish. So I think it's going to be a fun year and fun for the fans to watch too. Even though it's tough at this point, no fans. I know my son and I, York, want to get our pictures at Citi Field because they're putting all the
cutouts there.
So fans in the stands. Yeah. So I'm thinking, let's get out to left field somewhere, and every time Pete Alonso hits a home run, it'll be right at us. So,
yeah, that'd be amazing.
yeah.
I kind of like that aspect of those cutouts. I actually have the replay of the ball game going on my TV right now, and there's about 5 rows of fans that are dedicated fans, always at Chavez Ravine. What an amazing ballpark. That's one thing about baseball that's just fantastic, is just the differences in ballparks, all the beautiful old parks in like Chicago, Wrigley Field, and the Fenway in Boston, and then you have great parks like Dodger Stadium, and they always face the Giants. So it was nice to see rekindling that rivalry last night. The Dodgers and the Yankees are both projected to go all the way to the World Series. They both obviously won on opening night. They look just both so stacked and both incredible. But the Dodgers were dealt a blow yesterday with Clayton Kershaw hurting himself in the weight room and getting put on the injured list. We'll see. They still sure have a heck of a good team.
Well, I mean, you look at the money involved. Garrett Cole pitching for the Yankees, such a huge contract in the offseason. Then Mookie Betts signing his contract with the Dodgers yesterday. So you go from New York to Los Angeles with 2 of the highest paid players in baseball now. It's pretty amazing. It's crazy in a lot of ways. I think it's got out of hand because it just pushes the fans to spend more on tickets, more on jerseys, more on everything, beer prices, food prices, parking, and everything else. So I think it's gone too far in a lot of sports, but hey, it is what it is. The market bears it, and people want to pay those prices to pay for the tickets to go see games, and then those guys want to make that money as well. But it's going to be a fun season. I'm excited for the Mets. I know Stroman went down with a bit of an injury the other day, and of course Noah Syndergaard won't play this season. But Jacob deGrom's on the mound today, and I think he'll have a great year. And I'm excited to see what Pete Alonso does. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on this young guy. It was amazing to watch him hit 53 last year and hit the most in the majors and set all those records. But what do you do in your second season? It says a lot. And even though it's a strange season and a shortened season, I'm excited to see what he can do this year as well.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. What an amazing rookie year for him, and 53 home runs and winning the home run batting title in the All-Star game against Vladdy, which was super exciting for him and all the fans. Vladdy had so much publicity behind him, but Pete was just a better home run hitter. That was just must-watch TV. That home run derby was one of the most fun things I've ever seen.
Oh, I've watched the replay a few times now. It was fun, and a lot of times, I mean, it's easy pitching. It's easy to hit those home runs, but to get on a roll and Vladdy, I mean, he was getting tired. I mean, he was just smoking it so hard, and his are so much more just the power of his swing and the line drive home runs that he can hit. And Alonso can go to opposite field so much as well. So you know what? It's made for the fans that way. It builds up the game. I know with it was interesting yesterday. Obviously, none of us have gone to the sports apps for updated scores on our phones for many months now. Yesterday, I actually did that. It's like, hey, we'd gone for a walk. Let's check out the score of the baseball game. I haven't done that in like 5 or 6 months now, since March, I guess. Yeah. So it's fun to do that again, and it's good to see that we're back. I mean, people need this kind of thing. I think, especially in British Columbia, we've done so well with the physical distancing and not having it really hit hard. We're seeing some cases grow here in the Okanagan simply because of this tourist season. There's so many people around here. But you know what? We're sports fans, and it's our fix that way. It keeps us going. We have our favorite teams. We're all in the same boat. We just want some live sports to watch again, because it's tough watching those old repeats from 2015 or whatever. It's getting tiring.
It sure is. Yeah, no, I'm done with those. I want live sports. And that was such a long stretch for me. The longest stretch I've ever went without watching live team sports. Yeah. The baseball said yesterday it was 266 days from when the Washington Nationals won their World Series championship over Houston and to opening night last night. So yeah, that's really long. That's the longest ever for baseball out here. Yeah. You mentioned those contracts. Garrett Cole signed 9 years for $324 million, and Mookie Betts 12 years for $365 million. Yeah, just insane money. It's baseball's got a lot of money like that, but I don't think they're going to be able to hand these types of contracts out for a little while with no fans in the stands. It's going to impact the financial hit. They're talking about a new playoff format that they just decided to agree on yesterday. And then there's $50 million in that pool. So that's a big incentive. 16 teams making the playoffs. That's very rare in baseball. Baseball's always been that team sport where, you have to be one of the very elite to make the playoffs. They only introduced the wild card, a few years ago, and it was really, really tough. Now they got the wild card. Now they got 16 teams making it. That's kind of cool, but what do you feel about it?
Well, I was glad they got to a wild card. Obviously, it used to be 2 divisions, and the top team in each played in the World Series, and that was it. And then, broke it down a little bit more where there was 2 divisions in each of the American and National League, and you'd have a playoff and a championship and then a World Series. It's been one of the unique things about baseball that very few teams make the playoffs. And maybe that's been a good thing. When the NHL, it's grown to 32 with Seattle coming in, has 16 teams in the playoffs, and it's been that way for a while. So as the league has grown, there's always been 16 teams in there. So a lot of teams, a lot of times you didn't even have a 500 record and you were able to make the playoffs in the NHL. It's not really the case anymore. You got to be better than that. But baseball's always been unique. You had to have a great season to make the playoffs. But I think the problem with that is it's such a long season, 162 games. By June or July, in some cases, some teams were out of the running already. They were thinking next year, and the season wasn't even half over. So you never want that. It's never good for a league when that team's fans when they know that their team's just not going to be there this year, and then you maybe start unloading players and you start rebuilding, and the cycle just continues and continues. So I think adding some teams is a good thing. I like the wild card and then the second wild card with that one game playoff, because everything comes on the line for that one game. And I mean, Mets lost it a couple of years ago to the Giants. It was that one game showdown, and it's disappointing if that's your team playing in it and they don't get to move on. But it's what it's all about. It's like that Super Bowl type effect of one game, and you better be there and you better be on, because if you're not, your season's finished that way. So I like it. I don't know if I'm crazy about 16 teams. I've liked the fact that there's the 3 championship teams in each division, and then a couple of wild cards, and move on from there. I think that's been good, because I think it gives those 2 wild card teams that chance to keep playing for the season. And I mean, the Mets came close at the end last year, just missed out by a couple of games, but they had a slow start, and because of it affected them down the road. And that's kind of the cool thing about this 60-game schedule this year for baseball anyway, is that you got to be on from the start, and you just can't, start 2-10 or something like that, because you're just not going to make the playoffs then.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Well, Washington Nationals that won the World Series last year, they started 19-31.
Yeah.
And they were talking about firing the manager. They were talking about, starting to clean house there. And somebody said, no, let's just stay the course. And they turned it around and won the World Series. It's not going to happen if a team starts out cold like that this year. 60 games, you got to really go at it. Hard to handicap. Everybody's talking about LA and New York being those teams. Houston, Toronto really has a really good young core. I don't know if they have the pitching depth to be able to go far, but with 16 teams making it in, the Jays might be able to get into the playoffs again. And every time the Jays do make the playoffs, so they have a really serious run at it, Canada just gets swept up into baseball fever. Really, really exciting for me as a huge baseball fan. Really nice to see that many people are still watching baseball into October and even into November now.
Yeah, when 2015 they had the great season. I mean, the Mets went on. The Kansas City, of course, beat Toronto, and then ended up beating the Mets in the World Series. But we see what it does. Blue Jays are the only team in Canada, and there are people. Some of us, obviously, Yankees fan, Mets fan. You're going to stick with those teams. They're your teams, and it matters not if a team moved to Vancouver. I'm a Mets fan, and I'm going to stay a Mets fan that way. I'm a Canucks fan in hockey as well, and grew up in the middle of Saskatchewan, so I was a free agent. I could go wherever I wanted with that one. But we saw with the Raptors last year what they could do to capture the nation, and I think that was just so cool. We're here on the West Coast or in Western Canada. We tend to think the West that much more and push aside Eastern Canada and people in Toronto. But I tell you, when I've got a friend here who ended up watching the game where the ball bounced 4 times before it went through and put him into the championship. And it's a moment, I've only seen that guy a couple of times since then, but just happened to be at his place to watch the game. We're both basketball fans, and I'll never forget that moment. It was one of the coolest things in sports and in basketball, the way everybody was on the edge of their seat for those couple of seconds to see it go in. But they captured the nation. There were so many Raptors everywhere you went, Raptors jerseys and people excited about it. And maybe the Blue Jays can capture that. They might be a year or 2 away. But they've got some great young talent there. I mean, Vladdy Guerrero is going to be an amazing player. He is already, of course, but
Well, they've got those sons of major leaguers, and it's that always helps having those bloodlines. Vladdy, as you mentioned, Bichette and Biggio and Lourdes Gurriel, and they just got a lot of really good, talented young guys that know what it takes because their fathers were there. And they grew up watching their dads do what they did, and be able to come into the Blue Jays organization. It's revitalized the fan interest after a couple of low seasons. And in 60-game sprint, I think all bets are off. I think they have a shot as well as anybody. So it'll be great. And as you mentioned, I have never seen anything surpass the popularity of hockey in this country until the Raptors went on that run. All the Canadian NHL teams were finished. They weren't in the playoffs anymore. Raptors went on that run. Kawhi hit that shot against Philadelphia to win that series. All of a sudden, people are like, whoa, I think they might be able to do this thing. Holy cow. And Kawhi just, had that belief system. He made the organization believe. And all of a sudden, the whole of Canada, I'm seeing watch parties from all corners of this country. And it was exciting for me because I'm a huge basketball guy. And it was really nice to go into a pub during playoff time when it's typically 99% of the TVs are on hockey and one's on basketball. This time it was basketball. And it just shows if a Canadian team can have success, no matter what sport, really the country gets behind it. It's great. It unites us all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was just a great time. I mean, and you hope that they can do it again. I mean, they lost Kawhi, but they've still got a great team, and we'll see what happens in the NBA. Where they've kind of been the forgotten sport in a lot of cases, especially here in Canada to some degree, because we're excited about baseball and that getting officially underway today, and today kind of being opening day for a lot of other teams. And then, of course, we're enthralled that hockey is coming back, and the fact that Canucks are there. I mean, could be a quick 3 games and they're done, but it's only a week and a half, 2 weeks away. And so we're excited to get to that point as well. We're Canucks fans. We want to see them in action. If we transition a bit, I like what they've got. I mean, they've got such great young talent that I thought really took a major step, before the season was stopped in March. And so I'm excited to see what they can do as well, and see if they can capture. We need our sports. We want something to cheer about, and it's going to be tough sitting inside. And we got temperatures in the 30s here coming up in Penticton. But you know what? To spend a couple hours inside, especially for those hockey games, and they could be at any time during the day as well. It's going to be fun to get back to that as well.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, I think the NHL has been the smartest league, getting back to it right away, having the playoffs. NBA decided to have 8-game schedule, which doesn't make sense to me. I want to watch their games, but they don't really have much meaning behind them. Immediately, the NHL, as soon as they start it back in action after a 1-game preseason, these games mean something, and it's going to be all on the line. regular season hockey and playoff hockey are just two completely different sports, even almost. You just see the intensity level just amp up, and these guys are going to be playing for real, knowing that they could be hoisting the Stanley Cup in a couple of months. They have to play every second day for 2 months, and then they get to reach that ultimate prize, something that they've been dreaming since they put on skates as a youngster. A lot of them have hoisted that Stanley Cup in their backyard, on rinks all over this country, all over the world. Hey, Stanley Cup winner. And, they finally get that distinction of doing it. It's exciting. I'm glad NHL is immediately into it. And, Jim Houston talking about it really amped me up and getting excited that we're finally ready to embark on the playoffs and a new 24-team format. So, there's so that many more teams that have an opportunity, and it's going to be fun, really fun.
Well, and talk about the pressure on those teams as well. I mean, they're in training camp now. They're back for a month or so before they start this playoff run, and it could be over in a matter of days. So all that hard work. So I obviously the players, I think, and the teams are going to take it that much more seriously, because you don't want to go through all of that and lose 3 straight in that first best of 5 and be done. It's the cool thing. We're fans of a lot of sports. Hockey's that one that we grew up with. We played as kids, and for the most part, I grew up in Churchburg, Saskatchewan. So Kevin Kaminski, Killer Kaminski, is a junior hockey coach in Larange now in the Saskatchewan Junior League. Had a pretty good career in the NHL. More as a fighter, didn't score a lot of goals. But here's a kid that I remember watching a minor hockey. I played in a Sticks and Picks golf tournament a couple of years ago down in the Soyuz, and they brought NHL old timers in for a game in Penticton. Then we golfed, but golfed with Scott Niedermayer. Well, 2 of his sons are playing with the Penticton V's these days, and just such a great guy, down to earth. You get to know these guys on a personal level because they grew up in some of the small towns you did. They made it big. They won Stanley Cups. They made some decent money. They can sit back and retire and enjoy themselves now. But you get to meet them and chat with them. And I think that's the cool aspect about hockey that's different than all those other sports, because we're around all those players all the time. I mean, Jim Houston lives in the Okanagan here in the off season. A lot of NHL players do as well. And why not, with the lakes and everything else that we've got around here. So they come out here, and you've always got a chance. The Penticton V's have sent a lot of players to the NHL over the years. And a lot of them come back here because they understand the importance of the community. They love it here. Fred Harbinson maybe has one of the easiest sells in junior A hockey on the planet in trying to convince kids to come here. The V's have led Canadian Junior Hockey League in attendance for at least the last 3 years anyway. And we were probably 3,200, 3,300 average last year, which is unheard of in junior A hockey. One of the best buildings to play in a community that supports the team well. So it's an easy sell in that regard. And again, you get to know these kids, and they move on to the NHL, and you keep those friendships for a lifetime.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Scott. That's him right there behind me, hoisting the gold medal for Canada here in Vancouver during the 2010 Olympics. And he's one of those guys that won everything in his career, every kind of hockey tournament, every type of thing, Stanley Cups, and just an amazing guy, like you said. I was super impressed when I went to the V's with you and looked at their roster and realized that there was 5 guys on the team that had NHL dads. Wow, like you say it's an easy recruit for the guy there, but to be able to get those bloodlines and those guys in the V's were on a really great run this past year. It must have been just a joy for you to be part of that organization and call these games of these guys as they're up and comers.
Is this the part where I put on my my Penticton V's jersey here? I got him already.
Nice. Yeah. What a great organization.
Got my mug here.
12 titles in that in that history of the BCHL. I do want to just I want you to talk about the V's big time, but I do want to just make sure our viewers and listeners understand what the BC Hockey League is all about. It's been around for about 60 years. It's a junior A league that sends guys to, basically tries to send guys to colleges. Once you play in the Canadian Hockey League for one game, you're ineligible for any type of scholarships south of the border. You're ineligible to play any type of hockey in any college university setting. And so this is a great league for guys that want to get an education as well as get an opportunity to get into the NHL as well. And it's every year, I think it's been 5 years in a row that there's been more guys getting scholarships and going into post-secondary education. Just a fantastic job that the BCHL does.
Yeah. They're so different. And I remember, the years I spent in Regina, I did Pat's play-by-play for a couple of years. And I think if you even got onto the game sheet, you didn't even have to hit the ice. But if your name was on a game sheet at that point, and things may have changed now that you were ineligible to get a scholarship. But a lot of the players in this league, yes, I mean, they're getting drafted more now. And I mean, Tyson Jost, Dante Fabro, they're becoming stars in the NHL, and it's great to see. I mean, those kids played here. I did Chilliwack Chiefs play-by-play back in 2016 when they lost to West Kelowna in the BCHL championship, and the Warriors went on to win a championship that year. But Penticton had some great talent then and always has. But it's a junior league that's maybe a little bit older than what major junior has. A lot of times there's some 16 and 17-year-olds in there approaching their draft year. In this league, there might be more 18, 19-year-olds, and of course the limit with 20-year-olds. But yes, it's geared much more to having those kids excel here for a year or two. Most of the players on the roster, I mean, last year you get a lineup sheet for the Vs, and out of those 20 players, 14, 15, 16 had scholarships for next year already. They take pride in that. You want your kids to excel and to move on to a higher level, NCAA, and then eventually the NHL. And the best thing I think you can do as a coach and take pride in it is, and it's the same in the workforce as a boss, is where the people below you, or in this case the players, achieve a lot and get to a higher level. And it's certainly the focus. BCHL announced last week that December 1st, it's a great date, it's my birthday, it's when the season starts for the BCHL. Nice. But it's going to be later, and there was talk of maybe even starting in October. But I think with some of the cases increasing these last few weeks for COVID-19, that they wanted to push it back and do it right. And I've got a great relationship with Fred. Alex Welsman is in charge of corporate sales, and she spent some time with the Canucks and in Vancouver before coming out here about a year and a half ago. And she does an amazing job in the back end of it with corporate sales. And I was able to help with that a little bit last year, along with doing color in the broadcast. But they've got just such a great organization. Graham Fraser is the majority owner. And of course, he was the guy behind Ironman triathlons for years and years and years. Just announced that he's coming out. They're going to be going into production in September for a movie. The Graham, V's owner and a high school pal back in Ontario, wrote like about a 40-minute kind of a little documentary mini movie years ago when they were in high school, and they're going to resurrect that. And Graham's son, one of his sons, Matt, is an assistant coach with the V's. His other son, Luke, is going to produce this. Era has written a good chunk of it. So yeah, it's an amazing organization. And as for the league, I'm excited to see it get back. They wanted to wait that long because it's tough for junior teams. I mean, we're seeing it in the major leagues right now. We'll see it in the NHL with no fans in the stands, no income that way. BCHL teams just simply can't do that. I mean, the V's, like I say, probably averaged 3,300 last year. If they put 1,500 in, they can probably make things work okay. But obviously they average a lot more. But some of the teams, the Merits, Coquitlam had such a great team this last year, but put in 200, 300, 400 fans a game at times, which is frustrating to see. They had their crowds of 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 as well during the playoffs. But all the teams are so different. They're small markets, they're big markets. This isn't a big market here, but it's got diehard hockey fans and diehard V's fans, and because of it, they reap the benefits of some of that. But yeah, you mentioned the team from last year. I mean, they had such a good team. I just truly believe this V's team had the capability of going all the way. They had the right mindset. The players just believed in themselves so much, and there was just that never say die attitude. There were a couple games last year where they were down by 3 and scored a couple or 2 or 3 in the last 5 minutes of a game to force overtime. The very last game of the season, I think they were down 3-1 to Wenatchee, scored 3 goals in the last 5-6 minutes to win the game in regulation, the final home game, and they had a winning streak going into that. So it's fun. It's going to be fun to get back to Junior A. It's what kind of brings it to the heart of British Columbia that much more for hockey fans. We can watch the Canucks on TV. Very few of us get to go to the games, especially here in the interior. But junior hockey is the lifeline for a lot of people that way, for fans. It ties them to the community that much more. So it's going to be great to see December 1st when the season gets going again.
Yeah, I'm glad that they made that announcement. That was at first surprising to me. Then I realized why they would push it back a little bit, because they want the fans. And, you know, my worry is that a lot of these communities will lose this lifeblood, like you said, lifeline to their community, the sports guys. These guys are, you know, the attraction. They pull the community together. You get to see your friends whenever the games are on, and it you know, gives you a lot of spirit in your team, in your hometown, and it's something that I really worried about with the coronavirus and not being able to have fans. How many of these teams wouldn't survive? I was talking to Rob Fay with the Seas, and you know, there's a possibility of a lot of baseball teams, you know, leaving their communities, not being affiliated anymore with Major League Baseball, and you know, a lot of these worries of these small communities not being able to have the financial wherewithal for their junior hockey teams. I'd be really sad to see, you know, a lot of these teams leave these communities. It would just be devastating, in my opinion. You know, terrible.
Yeah, it really would. And it doesn't matter the level as well. I mean, single A ball in Vancouver with the Canadians, and we all know what it's like to go to Nat Bailey for an afternoon game and enjoy the sunshine and a cold beer. It's just one of the best places in the world to be able to do all of that. So as far as, you know, and I mean, Junior A, there's Junior B teams all over through the Okanagan here, and of course throughout BC with a number of leagues. They're all in the same boat, and you just hope that if they're community-based teams, maybe it's not so bad. If they're ownership-based, and a lot of them are now, you just hope that those people can survive it, because yes, it's just so important. It would be a sad day. I mean, we're all going through this pandemic, and it's unprecedented in our lifetime, and it's just changed so much of our day-to-day life. We're all getting tired of sitting inside and watching Netflix, and I think I've seen all the movies I can possibly see on Netflix these days, so I'm done with it all. I'm happy baseball's back, and hockey in the next week and a half is going to be back as well. But we just hope that those teams can survive, that they can, that they can get through this. I know it's just a lot up in the air right now, but you know, Junior B teams as well. There's one in the Soyuz and Summerland in this area, Princeton. You know, those small towns, that's pretty much it on a Friday and Saturday to go watch junior hockey. And I wish them the best of luck, that they can keep on going.
Yeah, me too. Definitely. Yeah, it's something that concerns me and worries me. I worry about so many of these small towns across the continent not being able to have the team that keeps that spirit up and keeps the lifeblood into the city and the organization. And yeah, it really worries me, but let's hope we can all come through this pandemic, and a lot of these teams can survive, and you get to still enjoy those those baseball or hockey teams, because it's so important in Canada. I wanted to touch on a couple of things just before we go. Seattle has a new team, and they released their logo and their colors and their name yesterday. Some people hate it, some people love it. Where do you stand on that?
What the heck is a Kraken? That's what I want to know. I had to look it up. It's a unique name. I know I had a good discussion with my son about it, and I always like when there's a name that somewhat ties into the community. I think the Mariners is a great name for the baseball team. Obviously, it ties into Seattle's location and everything else, things like that. But it's a new world these days, and there's a lot of marketing people behind it. The hockey people kind of probably shake their head a little bit and wonder what a Kraken is. The marketing people, if they feel that they can sell jerseys and merchandise and everything that goes with it, then they love it, because that's where it's at, is to make that money behind the scenes as much as possible. I'm just excited for the fact that there's a team there. I mean, we saw what Vegas was able to do. And I happened to be in Vegas last November. I didn't get to go to a game, but the Toronto Maple Leafs were there that night, the night before I came back to the Okanagan. And the amount of Leafs jerseys walking around along the strip was just unbelievable. And Vegas jerseys, Vegas shirts, like people love Las Vegas hockey team down there in the middle of the desert. So they've been able to capture people. Much different situation in the city, but Seattle's a hockey town as well, and has been for a lot of years. I remember going to do the major junior games there when I was with the Regina Pats, and that building was packed all the time. They had great fans there, and for Vancouver, it's such a natural rivalry. The only time that they're really going to have that, I mean, love to see them play games against Calgary and Edmonton and Winnipeg and of course Toronto, Montreal, teams like that, in Boston. But for Seattle, it adds something new. Fans going back and forth. I saw Squire last night on Global referring to the Sylvia Hotel and the logo being very similar. So of course, when Kraken fans come up to Vancouver for a game, you're gonna have to go get their picture taken in front of the Sylvia Hotel. But it just creates that natural rivalry, and that's great to see. Every league needs it. With the Mets and the Yankees, or the Cubs and the White Sox, or some of those types of things. There's a natural rivalry there, and fans get right into it. Well, I think with Seattle in the league, Vancouver fans have something like that. There is a natural rivalry there, and it's going to build up a lot more for those games. I think it's going to be very exciting to see them enter the league and see what they can do.
Yeah, you're right. That rivalry is the thing that immediately came to mind for me. Canucks have always been the team that has to travel the most out of any NHL team, because where we're located here, they have a 2-hour bus ride or a quick flight, and boom, they're there. It'll be nice. You see the Mariners games when it's Canada Day and the Blue Jays are in town. There's tens of thousands of Canadians down there cheering on the Jays. I think people are going to go en masse and go down there and support the Canucks, and it'll be nice to have that cross-border rivalry. I'm excited for the NHL. I'm excited for the fans around here, and the fans finally down there. They lost their basketball team like we did. They haven't had anything in that key arena for a while other than WNBA, and it's really nice. They're refurbishing it. They got the hockey reinvigorated into that community, and I'm happy. I didn't really care one way or the other what they were going to call the name. I'm just glad that they're entering the NHL next year. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think a name is a name, and Edmonton Football Club doesn't even have a name these days, and Washington's football team, the same thing. But yeah, with Seattle, they'll draw well. It's a major city, and we see what the Seahawks do, obviously, and the Mariners are a good draw as well. It's a good sports town, a good sports city, and I'm sure the hockey will be sold out every time, and it's going to be fun. I mean, for Vancouver Canucks fans to travel 2.5 hours south and get to go to a hockey game down there, and it's pretty easy to get right into the Key Arena and where the stadiums are, into that area off I-5. So it's going to be fun to have them in there, and you just know that there's going to be a great rivalry developed immediately between the Canucks and the Kraken.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Never thought I'd say that, but I did.
Canucks and the Kraken. Wow. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's a bizarre name. I think it'll grow on everybody, and but yeah, let's just rejoice that hockey's coming back in the Pacific Northwest right there in Seattle. So
I think of dark rum more than anything when I hear Kraken.
Yeah, no kidding. Me too. Yeah. Yeah, they said they're going to fill the Stanley Cup up with rum if they can ever win it. So be a good cross promotion from that for them. Yeah. So, I did want to get you to touch on your racetrack up there. I heard that you had some fans initially, and then they shut it down because of this COVID. That must have really disappointed you and the racetrack as a whole and all the fans there.
Yeah, I've been doing it. I did it all of last year and for the end of the year before, and I just love going up there. It was something new to me. I mean, I've been to some of the drag racing and the road racing that they've got out at Mission, and I always had fun going out there. But they've got an oval track here. It's been going for 51 years now, so it's kind of a mainstay. It's if you know Penticton, you drive up Carmi about 5 minutes. It's kind of up in the hill, so it's set unto itself. You don't really see too much. But it's kind of tucked in there, a 22-acre site. They'll put upwards of 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 fans in there at times. There's some big events last year that it was just amazing to see. There's a hillside above it, and it's a tailgate section, so that area is always packed, people having barbecues and everything. Johnny Anches has owned it for about 22 years now, and works hard. He's a driver as well. But we had a race July 4th. They really worked hard to make sure people were physically distanced. They taped off part of the stands. Every second row was taped off, so you couldn't sit there. Before the race even started, Johnny went up into the stands to move people around a little bit. So they were social distancing. So we all thought that, you know what, everybody did a great job to host the event. I know it was more than the 50 that the provincial government and health would like you to have. But I guess the problem I have is that you can go to the beach. We saw the video from Stanley Park, Third Beach the other night where there were thousands of people there. I believe Thunderbird Equestrian had an event last week where there was quite a few people there, obviously more than 50. And you can go anywhere where there's more than 50 people congregating these days. So I wish that, up till last Friday, there was racing last weekend, Saturday, Sunday. And as of Friday, Johnny met with the RCMP and Interior Health, and Dr. Bonnie Henry, I think, came down and said, no, you can't have more than 50. So they had the racing, but I do the announcing up there. I love what I do, and it built up, the excitement during those 2.5 hours. And there was no need for me to be working there, so I could kind of just sit back and enjoy the racing a little bit. But we do something very unique here, and I'll touch on it quickly. It's called Flying Destruction. So any of your viewers and listeners, come out to Penticton. You can go onto their the Speedway website and find out when the racing is and if fans are allowed to come back later this season. So at the end of all the racing, and they have street stocks and Hornets and Hit to Pass. A lot of drivers from the island, because they've got the track out there near Victoria. A lot of those drivers come out for races here, would be from the States and from up north as well. But at the end of the race, they'll get an old RV that somebody wants to trash. They'll park it at the start-finish line across the track. They'll put a ramp in front of it, and 4 or 5 guys that want to wreck their cars will race around the track, take that ramp, and blow right through the RV. So the very first one, of course, and I'll always ask the fans, hey, put your hand up if you've never seen Flying Destruction before, and a good chunk of them put their hand up. So they're new to the track, which is great to see. They're building race fans. But this Flying Destruction is something to see. You can go onto their Facebook page. You're going to see some from the past. But they'll demolish an RV. I know they had the monster trucks a year ago there, and the 2 guys that owned those trucks just couldn't believe what they were seeing. And they'll either do that or they'll do Eve of Destruction. And the Hit to Pass cars are nothing beautiful to look at. They're wrecks, but these guys work hard to put good motors in them and race them, and they're Hit to Pass. You try to get in behind a guy going around a corner and give him a nudge. He spins out, you pass him, and you move on. But for the Eve of Destruction, they'll they'll chain up an RV or a boat or a trailer or whatever they can find behind their vehicles and race around the track. So you've got RVs flying around, you've got boats bouncing in behind them. So the track is a mess when it's finished. But it's a lot of fun. And again, it's entertainment. It's what sports is all about in a lot of ways. I mean, we're purists in many ways, and we just love the sport for what it brings, the value that it brings, baseball, hockey, whatever. But in this case, there's an entertainment value. And yeah, we hope that, there's a 3-day weekend coming up next weekend, a big weekend for the track, and they always put thousands in. At this point, there won't be spectators allowed, which is unfortunate. But hopefully later in the season, things loosen up a little bit and they get some fans back in. The racers, even though they're in fast race cars, they still know when there's fans in the stands. And if there's 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 fans in attendance, it boosts them up that much more as well. So we hope we can get back to that sometime this summer.
Yeah, sure hope you can. Yeah, sounds like a ton of fun. And I've been to a lot of those small speedways, and it's another lifeblood for a lot of guys that are into cars and to going out there and watching racing. It's just a blast, and I'm glad you guys have a track there, and I'm glad that you've had a few races. Let's hope, keep our fingers crossed that some more can come soon as the season winds down, and we can get some lax a little bit on allowing more fans in the stands like that. The last thing I want to touch on before we just focus on shifting it off to baseball today is Mike Tyson decided he's coming back. Roy Jones Jr. exhibition fight that shocked the world when he made that announcement yesterday. Kind of cool. What do you think? You going to watch it?
Probably. I know I watched the Hangover movies a couple of weeks ago. I had nothing to do, so I went through 1 and 2, and of course, he's in both and sings at the end of one of them. So if he goes back to boxing and gives up his singing career, that's probably a good thing. But whether it's to make more money, you don't. These guys are getting old for boxing, so there's some sports that I think you need to pass up. I still play my mixed slow pitch kind of thing when I can, but boxing is a tough one, and you don't want to see anybody get injured. So what's behind it all, I'm not sure. I would watch it as well. I think he'll get a lot of people watching it just to see what he can do in the ring. And he's grown older, but he's probably grown a little wiser as well. And he did some crazy things when he was younger. But let's face it, when he was young, man, boxing was a sport that it's not that prominent anymore, but it was back then. And we've seen some of the old fights with Ali and Foreman and some of those guys on TV in the recent months with nothing else on. But yeah, it's a publicity stunt, I'm sure, in some ways, but we'll still be watching it.
We sure will. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's kind of cool. I'll be watching it. I worried if it was about the money or what it was all about, but I'm sure, I'll be tuned in like many of the viewers and listeners will be too. Let's finish off on baseball. We're like a couple hours away from first pitch with your team, the Mets against the Braves. Really great National League East rivalry. There's 3 teams in that division that are fantastic. With Washington winning the World Series last year, the Phillies, getting Bryce Harper and being really good. Actually, the Braves too, and then the Mets. There's 4 teams that are really solid teams every year. It's going to be a really big dogfight, and for those 60 games.
Well, and yes, those 3-game series that they play against each other, there's just going to be so much importance on every single game. But the Braves, a lot of people are picking the Braves to win the division. Of course, the Nationals are defending World Series champs. The Phillies have got a great team, a new manager, and the Mets are where they're at as well, and I think have a good shot. Those 4 teams could go anywhere. Of course, the Marlins are pretty much picked as last in that division by everybody. But of course, those teams in the crossover are going to play the American League East, which has got the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Blue Jays and Tampa and some good teams there. So it makes it a little tougher on them when they do the crossover games. But it gets going today for pretty much most of the teams and through the weekend. And it's going to be fun to watch. It's every game is important, and that's the way it should be. A lot of times the seasons are stretched out for the most part to give ownership the ability to make some money out of it. With a 60-game season and no fans, that's all out the window. It's all about the baseball, I think, at this point. And I'm excited about today, 1:00, first game at Citi Field, and we'll see what happens over the next 60 games.
Yeah. No. I mean, there's a DH now.
Yeah.
NL didn't have that in its entire history. That adds a big wrinkle to that league. What do you think about that?
No, I mean, I'm a Mets fan, a National League fan. I see the benefits of both. I mean, there's purists there as well. I think the fact you have a DH in the American League adds more offense, obviously, more excitement for the fans. The fact the National League is stuck with pitchers getting into the batter's box, I like it as well. And the Mets have had some good hitting pitchers the last couple of years. They can all hit home runs, so it's been fun to watch that. I'm not sure where it goes after this season, if they'll go back in the National League to allowing pitchers to bat. I know with Yoenis Cespedes probably being the main DH for the Mets, they can benefit from that a lot in this particular case, because he won't be as much of a benefit in the outfield. But if he can DH on a regular basis, and they've got some other guys to move around there, Pete Alonso gets the odd day off from playing in the field, but he can DH for them. So things like that. So I think it's going to add something to the game for this shortened season anyway, and allow players to expand their rosters a little bit and use more players, especially in the National League. So I'd like to see it get back to normal by next year, but for the shortened season, I think it's probably the best way to go anyway.
Yeah. I think it's cool, and like you say, a lot of these guys will get more opportunities to have at bats, and it'll add a wrinkle to baseball that we haven't ever seen from the National League. So, but I'm excited. I'm glad opening day is here. I've been waiting for 5 months to see a pitch, and last night was great, but now it's full schedule starting today. I'm glad you could join me today for that. Hope you can be a regular. We would love to have your insight into the baseball season, into hockey, and the Speedway, and all the things that you can bring us. So please be a regular contributor to the podcast. We would love to have you.
I've got my Canucks jersey here. I'm ready to go with that next week. I've got my V's jersey, and we'll get that going for December 1st, and the Mets jersey today. So thanks, buddy. I really appreciate this. It's a great opportunity to chat. I know we could probably do this for another 5 or 6 hours and not skip a beat. But the tune-out factor would probably be there at that point. But you know what? And again, congratulations on this. I mean, we've been able to stay good friends over the years, and sometimes the visits take a year or two in between, but it's always great to connect. And I'm happy for you. This is a good gig. It's the way to go. You can talk to who you want, when you want, and we all get to benefit from that. And you've had some great guests so far. So congratulations on the show, buddy.
Thanks so much, Dale. I really appreciate it. And thanks so much for your time. I know you're a busy man. You got lots on the go always. Enjoy the game today. Have a great week ahead, or weekend ahead. And I really appreciate your time. Can't wait to talk to you. Let's do it really soon.
Yeah, and through all this COVID, we'll get together for a cold one sometime soon as well.
Perfect. Sounds great. Okay. All right. Take care. Yeah, you too. All the best.
You too.
Okay. Thanks so much, Dale. Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Corey. Yeah, that was great. That was just a really enjoyable time for me, and it was really fun to be able to talk so much sports with him. Like you said, we could probably go on and on for hours and hours, and still have lots more to talk about.
Yeah.
So,
anytime, man, anytime. I enjoyed it. It's just it's fun to talk. Obviously, it's you, but I'm glad I forgot to plug in my power cord for this my Surface when I moved it over here, and the light just came on to say low battery. It's like, oh shit! I'm glad we're finishing up here. So
we're wrapping it up. Yeah, good. So cool. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for all the support to everybody. It's been really great. I do want to give a shout out to Michael Scott. He's on a bike ride tomorrow. It's a 100-kilometer bike ride for MS. He's trying to raise funds, and good luck. I hope it goes really well, Scotty, and hope people can join your page and donate so you can raise some more money. I've been pretty impressed with a lot of the funds that I've seen on there when I went on the page. So all the best. Let's talk very soon. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the baseball, and love you. Take care. Bye for now.